Welcome in, welcome in. How is everyone doing? I hope we all are having a wonderful evening. Tonight I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on with me, what's going on with plans, with things going forward. So, pretty sure Tuesday through Thursday, no, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I am going to be doing a 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central Time stream, and probably play video games. I might even do it on Friday afternoon, but I won't be streaming Friday nights. The whole idea is that I'm trying to find times that work best with everyone. And Fridays seem to be a very slow night, very hit and miss. But it seems to be in the afternoons I can catch quite a few people. So I think that that's going to work better. But again, I'm not sure about Friday afternoon yet. I'm going to stick with the Tuesday through Thursday, twice a day. So 4 hours each day. And see how that goes. But, always subject to change. I also kind of wanted to talk about a little bit more about the whole censorship thing. The only way to really stop the censorship, the way that they're doing it, the way that they're acting on it, is literally to take away the anonymity. Now, that requires, giving your ID. I don't like that. I would rather have some kind of, and I know I'd get a lot of pushback, but some kind of regulatory body where you give your ID to so they always know who you are. But not necessarily, basically a third party verification entity rather than this, platforms pick and choose who they use. Because, a lot of your information is going to be sold, a lot of your information is going to be given away or easily hacked. Now, you take a big risk putting all of everything underneath one banner. But it's also a lot easier to protect that one banner than umpteen million of them. Especially when we as the user have no choice. If we could choose who verifies our identity and we could go with somebody that we trust, I think that'd be a smarter move. But I don't think that's ever going to happen. But what do I know? I don't know. It's just one of those things that this whole censorship thing, I think is dumb. Right? These nuts. Right. You choose whoever. You pick and choose. It's capitalism at its finest. You get to choose who you want to use. And I think everybody just should accept it, much like everything else we use. You get a handle, an ID, or something like that from this verification company that you get to use to verify your identity. The only problem is that you're really kind of negating the whole point, aren't you? You might as well just be giving away your ID. Because whether it's this unique identifier or your actual ID, it still goes back to the same place. They'll still be able to track you no matter what you do. So that's why I just say take away the anonymity of the internet. Because no matter how you try and do it, that unique identifier is always going to be you, regardless of what it is. You could be using Ninetales across all sorts of platforms, and everybody know who it is behind that, so it would eventually be linked up with your ID anyway. And I think that's something that a lot of people haven't thought about, is how this would actually work in the long haul. Well, okay, you may not be able to because you want to do things legally. But somebody in the mafia, somebody here or there can use that identity for all sorts of stuff that you wouldn't do because you're a law-abiding citizen. You're not willing to do certain things. Hell, you don't even know half of what you could do with your identity that would be illegal. I don't either. I mean, the point isn't what you would or could do with your identity. The point is what other people could do with it. And I wish people would understand how easy it is to just let it go. Because if you identify yourself in one way, with your ID and everything, you don't have to have the censorship. It's basically a card that lets you get into anywhere, as long as you're of the proper age and it's legal. Boom, done. We have unique identifiers for a reason. Makes it, and it would make it intensely hard for people to stalk. It'd make it intensely hard for people to launder identities, not necessarily money, but launder identities. Right? I don't know. It's just one of those things that it's been on my mind a lot because it's so difficult to try and explain to people what is really going on. We're currently the frog and the heat is being turned up in the boiling pot, or in the pot, turning it up to boiling. Each little step that they go through, because YouTube's done censorship before. I mean, look at it. People won't say certain things, or they edit it because it might harm somebody. We worry about what might rather than what is so much more. We can't say certain words because it might harm somebody. But these advertisements that are basically porn are okay. And these are the same payment processors taking that money and distributing it that say we can't do it ourselves, that because we're not a company, we're not allowed to. Well, that's bullshit. That is pure, unadulterated, unfiltered, fresh from the cows behind bullshit. Why are companies held to a different standard than people? Why can they get away with stuff that we would be jailed for? Boss, how do you jail a company? Freeze their profits. Have it go to the government. Have a third party CEO that's whole job is just to maintain the status quo, maintain the people keep getting jobs. But the company itself, all of its assets are frozen. Its stock can't even shift up or down. It's literally no. I would never condone that. I will not make martyrs out of CEOs. That's all Luigi did. He made a martyr out of a CEO. He gave them a reason to fight back. Violence has never been the solution, unless defense is always a solution. If you are attacked, defend yourself. But violence, preemptive, getting back, revenge, these are not solutions. They don't do anything. Basically, look at every war where somebody was the aggressor. It's led to their downfall in one way or another. Either people lose faith in them. Right. I mean, violence won't solve this. It'll just give them a reason. It'll basically prove that what they're doing is the right solution. taking people's freedoms away is the right solution. No, that's not. We have to prove that we're better. We have to prove that we can stand up for ourselves without inciting violence. I mean, even, these protesters blocking streets. You're not doing anybody any good. You're just stopping people from going to work. You're opening the doorway for looters to go behind your lines and loot stores because it has nothing to do. I mean, you might be protesting perfectly legally, perfectly peacefully. But as soon as these other people infiltrate your ranks that you think are part of it, but no, they just want to loot. They just want anarchy. Because they believe that in a lawless society, they could get what's theirs. Whatever that may be. But that's not how it works at all. The bigger, the stronger, the more armed, whatever, the better trained, always wins in that capacity. But not the right. Not somebody who is correct in their action. That's not how that wins. We don't have proper mechanisms for proper protest. I mean, you can't just march down the middle of a street. You protest by, if you have a problem with ICE, line up outside the ICE office on the sidewalk. Peacefully stand there, not in the road, not anywhere where you're doing some harm. You got a problem with a company, do the same thing. Impede the traffic in and out. What's up, Ghoulie? Welcome in. We're talking about how you actually protest. Because opening things up for, you don't take downtown. Downtown doesn't serve any purpose. It has nothing to do with what you're doing. You go to the places that are that you're protesting against. You're protesting the city. You don't like how they're acting. Go down to City Hall. Impede them. Don't impede the poor people trying to just get back and forth to work. Don't open the doors for looters. Because all that means is that your opposition can open up the door and say, see, all they wanted to do was loot. And I'm not pointing any fingers at one side or the other because both sides do it. Yeah, exactly. All it does is just make it more inciting, more inflammatory. It gets clicks, but it doesn't actually solve anything. It doesn't work for anything. It just doesn't. I'm sorry to say, that's not how the world works. It's never proven to be effective. If violent protests worked, racism would have been solved back in the 60s. Or sorry, peaceful protests worked, not violent. If peaceful protests worked the way they want it to, racism would have been solved in the 60s. Or after OJ. Or Rodney King. No. I'm just saying that protests don't really work. Not in the way that we do them. There's a reason why companies let us hold them up. There's a reason why companies let us, put it in the textbooks. Because that's who really controls the company. And I don't even think that's a conspiracy anymore. I mean, all you have to do is look at the Epstein files. If you think that's going to do any good, again, if you blow out that ICE vehicle downtown outside the mayor's office, what's going to happen? That's a federal crime in a lot of ways. And they're just going to show that, you're violent. It's not going to win anything. No, it's you have to protest the people that actually matter. You have to go against the people that actually matter. You have to go to your Capitol building. You have to go to your city hall. Well, that's true. I mean, you would get 3 hots and a cot. You get on the news. You get something out of it. Now, whether it's what you want and whether it would actually advance your cause is an entirely different matter. I'm just talking about protests in general and how ineffective they generally are. They follow the news cycle, but they don't really change anything. I think we need some kind of pet policy in prisons. But, I mean, just look at the history of peaceful protest. Civil rights movement didn't do anything up until, they hit that critical mass. You had to have enough people. The problem is that everybody knows that can be extremely faked now, the numbers. So nobody takes the numbers seriously. No matter how much you make it look like you have the numbers, it doesn't really work. That's why you have to go out in force. You have to show up in person. Your city halls, your Capitol buildings, your governor's mansions. You have a right to assemble. We're fight clubbing outside. How about that? Well, Rando, we're not supposed to talk about it. Not in the open like that. You know that. It's like the first rule, man. I don't know. I mean, it's why on Discord I changed and on YouTube, my icon to Clippy from the old Windows 98. Louis Rossman has this video basically explaining, the idea is you're showing that you just want to help. You may do it wrong. I mean, who knows? I mean, I could be doing it absolutely wrong, but I'm just using my brain and trying to use the information I have available to do what's right, to talk about what's right. If somebody shows me I'm wrong and shows me a better way to do it, hell yeah, I'm all for it. Let's go with that. Yeah. In the club, we're all fam. Yes. Well, right. See, and that's the problem, isn't it? You're already committing felonies, so what does it matter if I change the rules for you? You're not going to follow them anyway. That's the problem with some of these protests, is that if they don't follow the rules, that's what lawmakers see. You're being lawless. Remember, most of these people have no freaking clue what it's like to be somebody without. They drum up racism. They drum up this just to keep the poors down. And I know that's a constant message that you hear. Well, yeah, that's the whole point. It can get pretty wild. Do we? But we don't have the constitutional right to do that with violence. We have the constitutional right to vote through it. Violence will never solve that. Look at how many different places have had civil wars. Yeah, and see where that got them. What did J6 win? They won a participation prize. The only thing they really won out of that was most of the biggest violent, people, yeah, they got pardoned. Well, yeah. But I mean, January 6th didn't do any good for their cause. It didn't. And if you tell me it's how he got elected this time, no. January 6th isn't what got him elected. The Democrats are what got him elected. The only reason why he got elected is because Biden refused to step aside. But even then, I think that was planned. I mean, you want to know my real thing about this? I think both sides collude together to keep people unstable. I think both the Democrats and the Republicans wanted Trump elected. Why else would they have held on for so long and then all of a sudden switch gears? And then put Kamala Harris with what, 3 months? Little over 3 months to campaign? She was set up to failure. And they still almost won. She was literally set up to fail, and she almost won. The Democrats set her up to fail. Now you look at them now. They're gnashing around without anybody in the lead. They're so fractured right now. I mean, at least you have MAGAs and you have... I don't even think it was that. I don't think it's some kind of patriarchy versus the matriarchy. I think that's another straw man put up in front of people to not pay attention. No, it's so the rich can control the poor. I don't think so. I think the people are just as likely to vote for the best candidate. But I think we need to stop pointing out so much that they're a person of color or that they're a woman or that they're both. That shouldn't be a thing to campaign on. Real politics should be. I mean, they put a woman in, tried to put a woman in front before too. Hillary. I don't think anybody wanted her other than a few very diehard fans. Hillary Clinton? I didn't want her. Didn't necessarily want Trump either. No, true. I'm just saying that this has nothing to do with color. This has nothing to do with gender or transgender. All of these buzzwords they're throwing out there. Transgender people have been around since time immemorial. We finally got the surgeries, and I mean, Night Court did an episode about a transgender woman. That was back in the 80s. Yeah, exactly. So I'm just saying that we have to stop paying attention to, DEI, woke, anti-woke, all of this crap. No, that's not doing anybody any good. Looking at people's skin tone and making a decision based on that, whether good or bad, is always bad. Right. Right. But you take away their talking points if you stop focusing on it. If you take away their rage bait, they can't enrage you. All you have to do is treat people like people. We're all equal. I don't care how much money you have in the bank. We're all equal. We should be treated by what we do, by how we act. Right. That's what I'm saying is that that's why we need to stop. We need to stop looking at all of this stuff and extreming. We're fanaticizing a whole generation. They're becoming fanatics of both the right and the left. And they can't think outside that because anybody that's in the center looks like an extremist to them. Anybody that just wants basic equality, if you're on the left, you're an extreme right. If you're on the right, you're an extreme left. We have a biological right to reproduce. There shouldn't be any legislation on it other than to protect that biological right to reproduce. Yeah, well, I know you're not wrong, Rando, but you're focusing too hard. You're making it worse by giving them the power to enrage you by calling you that. I'm not saying they don't do it. But why do you let it get to you? It's just words. I mean, honestly, aren't you? Wait, they're coming for IVF too? See, this is what I'm saying. This doesn't make any sense. I don't know if you feel like I'm attacking you, Rando. Because you're awfully defensive, and it's like, I get it, but I'm not trying to hate on you for what you are. Words are words. They're labels. You label yourself as a gay man. Does it really matter if somebody else calls you that? I learned a long time ago when people bullied me. Because, yes, I was bullied a lot in school. I learned a long time ago to just let it go. It's not worth fighting over. Until they lay a hand on me, that's when it's worth. Only if you let it. Only if you let it get to you. Little secret, I've been called a fat ass too. And the F word after it. But it wasn't something that fit me. So it didn't matter. That was a label that just didn't stick because it's not who I am. You have to be secure in who you are to walk away from that. That's really how you stop bullying. It's not with fists. It's not rising to the bait. But I am a breeder. I've had 2 kids. It's a label that I would carry, proudly. I'm proud of my kids. Why would I care? I mean, sure, some people can get triggered by it. That's their problem, not mine. No. That's you letting them do that. They can't reduce you any more than what you already are. It's you allowing them that power to reduce you down. Because it doesn't matter what people call you. It matters what you call you. That's the important part. That's really what it comes down to, is who are you to you, not to the outside world. You will never really be able to turn them away from... but see, here's the thing. The N-word was only ever developed to be derogatory. Every other one is turning something that wasn't derogatory and trying to morph it into something derogatory. Well, yeah, there are. But I think you're misunderstanding me, Nine Tails. That word still only has power because they let it. Somebody walked up and called me the N-word, I just look at them and laugh because I'm not. That's a label that wouldn't stick. Letting other people have control of your emotions and your feelings just through words means absolutely nothing. It's being confident in who you are. It's not letting the bullies get to you. You know, you can beat me up, scream and yell at me. That doesn't change who I am. That doesn't change who I am inside. Right. On one hand, I totally understand, Rando, and this is not meant to belittle you in any way. But at least the reason why they beat you up was something solid. Yeah, I suffered through that too. I was a fat kid in school. I just hadn't grown, but I was constantly hungry. I got the crap kicked out of me I don't know how many times. Every new school. And I went through 5 different high schools in 3 years. I was constantly getting bullied and beat up. I fought back, hell yeah. But I always had to fight back. Until I learned, just let it go. It got funny because I was always being picked on because I liked comic books. You know, they started calling me X-Man because I had these X-Men t-shirts. What they didn't know was that was the funniest thing to call me because it made me feel part of it. Yeah, Brando, it happened to me too. You can either let it beat you or you can rise above it. You can take the power away because it doesn't do any good to get upset at things that happened as a kid. You were a kid. They were kids. Y'all didn't know what you were doing. You didn't know really who you were at that point. But now as we grow older, we can see that they're just jibes. They don't win. Words only hurt us if we let them. Yeah. I didn't find that out until she was already an adult. It was way too late. You know, that literally happened under my watch. You don't think I don't feel bad about that? Yeah, Infinite Ghoulies my kid. That's my oldest. We also forget that a lot of times when stuff's centered around us, we see it as the center. And, because it happened to us, we're at the center. We forget that people are people. They have lives and things too. They may not have even understood what they saw that was happening right in front of them. You would be surprised at how many things happened underneath your nose that you didn't see. That we all. Yes, welcome in Infinite playlist. Infinite. Yes, Rando, I get it. And I don't think we're going to get anywhere with this conversation. I don't think you're in a position to listen, to understand what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say that the sexual assault, they laid hands on you, they did something to you. That's a difference than just words. That I have every anger against. Don't get me wrong. I also guarantee you that if I had been on that bus, it wouldn't have happened for long. Even as a kid. I mean, that's half the reason why I got bullied. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is that you're talking about somebody actually touching and doing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about words. Okay. So you had an adult you could have gone to, but you chose not to. I'm confused. You're complaining because everybody didn't do anything, but you didn't tell the one person who would have done something. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be rude, but that makes no sense to me. Okay. Okay, I'll give you that. That makes more sense now. Sorry, but the way you said that, I'm like... I guess all I'm really trying to say, I'm not trying to judge or anything like that. I don't know the whole story, Rando. What I'm trying to say is that we let words hurt us. Slurs, whatever you want to call them. If the label doesn't fit, it doesn't matter. And if, the label does fit, it doesn't matter. Maybe you shouldn't like that the label fits. Maybe you should look into, I can't help you with that, Rando. You still act as if this is an open wound when it happened in your childhood. How old are you? I'm pretty sure you're at least in your 30s. Sup, gossip? How you doing? Okay. You say you dealt with it in your 30, and you're in your 30s, but you're still talking about it as if it's an open wound. Like somehow I was devaluing your experiences by saying we needed to just stop rising to the bait when people scream slurs at us, yell slurs at us. I'm a little confused because you were getting pretty close to attacking me, like I had tried to take away your personhood by just telling you don't let him get to you. Like somehow I was trying to normalize that kind of speech when I'm trying to talk to you about being confident in who you are. Yeah, see, that's exactly. Oh, we were talking about how slurs, using words, name calling, BS like that. We should stop. I'm not trying to normalize it. What I'm trying to say is that why do we, like, you can call me a cracker all day long. You can call me a breeder all day long. A honky, a white boy, hill trash. I don't care. Because I'm not. I'm not any of those. So why does it matter? Somebody can scream and yell all sorts of insults at me. I know that they have. The only insult they ever really had that stuck was that I was fat. I got over it. I got fit. I got a little bit more in shape. Yeah, I got out of shape again, but that's part of aging. Ah, okay. So you're using this as an outlet. Okay, because I was feeling pretty attacked there, Rando. I'm sorry to say, but I was feeling pretty attacked. I did not mean to try and normalize abuse of any kind. I'm just saying maybe we need to stop reacting so heavily to take the sting out or take their joy of it away. And if you do normalize somebody being screamed at, if you do normalize the word in which it could be used to be, well, we took the sting out of shit, piss, ass, because it didn't mean anything anymore. They're just curse words. But we shouldn't let other people control who we are through their words. I remember growing up, sticks and stones might break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Yeah. Reclaim who you are. Be able to view who you are. Be true to yourself. And that takes a lot of the sting out of their words. Not all of it, but it takes a lot. It stops it from being so hurtful and more of just realizing how idiotic and ignorant they are. And I partially learned that from reading the story of the African-American man that infiltrated the KKK, that literally made friends with the KKK and got a lot of them to turn around because he took away their prejudices. He got to know them at a personal level, and they got to know him at a personal level and realized they weren't that different. That's the most important thing I think we can learn from this stuff, is that we're all not that different. We're all people. And once you stop defending yourself, because a lot of the times when they're yelling and screaming slurs at you, it's hard to understand that it's mostly because you're an unknown quantity. They don't really know you. You're unfamiliar. You know, they don't see you as a person yet. You know, and I think that's a lot of issues is that we as humanity, hey, no, that's fine. That's why I was really trying to get through to you, dude. Yeah, and that's a very healthy way to do it. But see, Nine Tails, that's why I was trying to talk to you. I wasn't taking offense. You didn't offend me. But I was trying to understand how I offended you. Yep. Well, and the one thing is that, you know, therapy is a lifelong process. Just like, you know, the hurts and wounds, that's lifelong. We've all been through some shit. I mean, I know it's hard to believe being that I'm a white guy, but I actually was a minority at one point where I lived. I think the school I went to was 20% white. In my, I think it was sophomore class, there was 5 white kids. You know, so I know what it's like to be in the minority. Okay, words are a slippery slope. Most of the time that slippery slope is because a person reacts. Because the abuser is getting the fuel for their fire. You're giving them what they wanted, so they go want more, more, more. If you laugh it off or if you own it. One of the funniest things that a gay kid did in my high school was some guy, you know, started screaming and using, you know, the slurs. And he just looked at him and was like, why? Do you want a date? Well, when they start with actions, you start taking actions of your own. Whether that's with the school system, whether that's with the adults around you. You know, there are recourses. And if people don't respond, you keep going up until somebody does. Or in my case, I just learned to fight. I mean, there's a reason why I'm pretty good at fighting multiple people at once, or at least used to be. I wasn't saying fighting. You went to fighting. There's people to respond. Remember, we already talked about this. Violence is not the answer. Hardly ever the answer. Defending yourself is one thing. And so what? I defended myself plenty in school. I had, for the time, the record of the longest in-house suspension. I don't know if it still stands, but in junior high, I was in in-house suspension, I'd say at least 80% of the year. Fight back. What are they going to do? Be mad? Because, yeah, I had the record of the longest time spent in in-house suspension. Well, then the school system failed you. And in my personal opinion, in-house suspension was the best thing that ever happened to me. Yeah, I think what school's 240 days, and I was in in-house suspension 180, give or take. That was the record for the school. You know, it's just learning that who cares if you get in trouble? What are they going to do? Expel you? You're already in a place you don't like. What's going to happen? You know, we often forget that we do have choices. And those choices may not be what we're thinking. But if we artificially limit our own choices, we end up resenting all those around us because we didn't make a choice. But the other side of this is I also wanted to talk about, you know, my future plans. The 2 to 4 time, I think I am going to retain Tuesday through Thursday. I may expand it to, 2 to 4 on Fridays, but right now I want to see about how 2 to 4 works Tuesday through Thursday because I'm not stepping on any toes. And I wanted to just, I don't know, just see how it goes. Because I'm trying to figure out how to get the best, well-rounded timing. Right? And I want to work on how to reach as many people as possible, make it available for as many people as possible. You know, I get everybody has lives. I'm also trying to take the days that I take away, like Monday, Tuesday, or not Tuesday, but Monday and Friday. And I want to try and work on recording stuff outside and release it on the Neon Boss channel. You know, just other gameplay and record that. You know, do some things. You know, basically slowly expand, see what I can do. And not just do the VODs, but also do, gameplay. You know, like say like if Ghost plays something on stream. You know, I may do my own playthrough of it, but not necessarily on stream. Just have my own playthrough and then just record it and drop it on the channel. You know, just for added fun. I'm going to try to keep those, split them up into about hour long each episode, but like play through a game, run that and keep that going. I don't know. I hope you guys don't mind, Right. Well, I'm also trying to get a fully loaded schedule for October. I want to see if I can basically have something dropping on the channel once a day, every day in October, but not necessarily pushing myself to stream every day. That's even better. I love that. You're going to have a neighboring town that they have a feud with called Sense, or the equivalent thereof. So it's a feud between Sense and Sensibility. Sorry, maybe that's a bad joke. I don't know. I don't know. It's just one of those things that I want to try and do that. I'm also looking at setting up my own website where I host. And I know Ninetales was here for that, but some of you weren't. Where I'll host some of my other videos. Where you guys can watch them ad-free. That kind of stuff. There might be like a small paywall. Or maybe I haven't really got it all figured out yet, like how I'm going to do it, but it's basically also a life raft off of platforms because of all the censorship and adpocalypses and stuff like that. I don't want to have to sit there and censor. And I don't like that any of the alternative platforms like Patreon love to censor stuff. Nice. Corpse Nud. I like that. So, and like I said, Rando's already heard this, but I don't know how many of you were here this afternoon. But the idea is to, like I said, life raft off the platform. Where I'm not beholden. And even Patreon, censors what you can and can't put on. You can get away with a lot more on Patreon, but they also take a huge chunk. And I figure, having $1 and a $5 tier is probably where I'm going to go. Because say if I just, have just as many subscribers. Okay, you were lurking this afternoon, so you did hear about this. Oh, even more fun. But either way, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make it the best value, the best thing for everybody. Where I've even thought about, putting up my music and letting you buy it. Basically buy a downloadable link. So you can buy it and download, the song you want. And it's yours. There's not going to be any DRM. It's not going to have a special player. It's just an MP4 file is the idea. The other idea is possibly just have on the website itself a radio player that plays my music on loop. Or maybe a playlist creator. I don't know. I don't know how much I can get away with. I've only been thinking about this for this weekend. So, again, it's still, early days, but I want to try and expand the brand. I've already secured 2 of the websites that I needed. At least the domains. So, Neon Boss TV, Neon Boss Shop. I got those. I couldn't get neonboss.com because somebody else owns it. Bastards. But I got decent enough for me. And I'm going to try and get it to work out. But I'm just trying to figure out what more you guys want from me, because I get more viewers when I'm just chatting. And not as many when I'm playing games. Ah. Okay, that makes sense. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out where to go and what to do. Because tomorrow is when YouTube's censorship starts. Right. And I'm worried about how much of an effect it's really going to have. Now, they've already figured out ways around it. But I'm wondering how much harder it's going to get in the future if we let them have this one. This is the problem is that they keep taking just a little bit at a time. At first, they censored words. You can't say this word. You can't say that word. You get demonetized. Well, I'd like to be able to know that if I get demonetized on a video, or if, Twitch starts doing something similar from streams, because they're having issues, I want to know that I can absorb that loss, that I can still be me without having to censor myself and make up stupid little euphemisms for trigger words. That list is just going to expand. That's what bothers me, is that list is just going to expand, and I'm not going to sit here and self-censor all the freaking time. It's annoying. Not only is it annoying, it's disingenuous. It's meaning I would have to put on a face and not be me. And, if I want to eventually do an iceberg about, stupid conspiracy theories, I don't want to have to sit here and talk about, certain subjects and have to censor myself and not use certain words to get around, some poor pearl clutching sensibilities that people have, about certain words. Like people started calling it a sewer slide, which, to me, just... You deny what happened, or you cheapen it. Like I was starting to say, delete the save file. And again, that denies what actually happened. That ruins it. That takes that person's sacrifice for good or ill and makes it nothing. No, the viewers don't want it either. Most people, they hate, that you have to use PDF file. But how long before they start censoring that? Because now people know what it is. It's as good as using the same word. That's the problem is that you're cheapening what they do. You're making it sound ridiculous. And it's not, you're losing the whole impact of the reason of having it. If I'm talking about a historical person that took their own life, why can't I use it the proper way? Or if I'm talking about Jeffrey Epstein and how he didn't take his own life, and the evidence stacked against that, or stacked for that he didn't, and maybe talk about the evidence stacked against it, which I don't think there's a whole lot. But the point is that how can we have any rational discussion when we have to use childish language? Like, if we're censoring ourselves in such a way that children can understand us, isn't that the exact opposite of what the censoring is supposed to do to protect the kids? Doesn't that mean it was never about the kids? That's the thing is that that's where it hits me, is that I realize it was never about the kids. It's all about getting your data. Because if it was really about the kids, they'd just start pushing people over to YouTube Kids. Or Twitch would start up a Twitch Kids, specifically for children. All these different platforms. TikTok's already started, forcing people to get their ID. Shoot, just look at the state the UK was in. Wish I could talk to LJ about that. I saw a news article that I haven't been able to really dig into. I didn't have enough time. But apparently school kids can get arrested for having a Big Mac after 5. I don't know what that was about. I don't even know if she was arrested for something else, but the headline said she was arrested for buying a Big Mac after 5 p.m. Well, that seems ridiculous reason to arrest somebody. It makes me glad I don't live in the UK. That seems a ridiculous level of nanny laws. I don't even know why they would have a law that kids couldn't eat a Big Mac after 5 p.m. Does anybody really have an idea of what that was about? Out of curiosity? Well, I would agree, other than I actually saw the clip of the officers dragging the girl away. Right? Well, and I'm just saying, I don't really know what it is. Okay, please understand. I'm just saying that that's what it. And even if it's, say, let's go with the McDonald's itself, because I know in America we've had some rules about kids not being accompanied by an adult after certain times. You can't go there. Like where Tater Tot worked at the movie theater after, I think it was 6 p.m., kids can't watch movie unaccompanied. So maybe it was just they didn't want teenagers in the McDonald's after a certain time because they got tired of dealing with the kids' BS. Well, then why would you serve a person? Why not just kick them out? You know, that's my feeling is that when they were dragging the kid away, she still had, she had bought the stuff. So they went ahead and, even if the law is, or even if it was just their thing, like, oh no, you're trespassing, you can't be here. But they still served her and took her money and got her arrested. Like, that all seems ridiculous. Like, what kind of legal BS is that? I guess. Maybe she thought she skirted the time. Went in, ordered it to go, because it was all in to-go stuff. So she wasn't inside. She left. I still don't get it. I'm going to have to get more information. But it seems rather ridiculous to me. It seems, these are the kind of laws that start escalating pretty quickly. Let's just find out. I have, let's see. So, a 13-year-old girl was being arrested at McDonald's over the restaurant's policy banning minors without adults from dining after 5 p.m. So, they had a policy that minors couldn't order after 5. Yeah, like they served her before calling the police. Okay, so it's their policy. It's after 5. So the rest wasn't because of the policy. So give me a second. I'm reading. Okay, they became mouthy and hostile with the workers. So I guess it is worthy. So they only arrested one of them because she was the most mouthy and defiant. Yeah, Twitch has been freaking weird. I'm wondering what they're updating in the background. And this is even from last year. Okay. Okay, so I guess in my feelings of, if you have to put laws in place like that, you really need to rethink how you raise the kids. So, I mean, the fact that the movie theater here has a similar law, rule that you can't have kids unaccompanied by an adult. Okay, why do we have to have that? When I was a kid, we could watch movies. Why are kids being so unruly? Well, we're taking away their consequences. So while I would say that this is an extreme thing, to actually arrest a child, but if these are the manner in which you have to do it, I guess it's what you have to do. But I still find it kind of ridiculous that they sold it to her anyway. Well, I guess, okay, if they sold it to her and then she got mouthy, that's one thing. And if it's, I don't know. I guess in this instance, I would have to say that they have every right to ban certain people at certain time. That's just their right. I find it interesting that you feel you have to put those laws in place, those rules in place. Because I don't think you should ever have to do that. I think we need to work more on, parenting our kids, being better parents to our kids, having more time. And you were right, Ghoulie. It was a litter box in the classroom garbage. It was a clickbait. But the fact is that in this instance, I actually think what they did was right. I'm not sure about actually arresting her, but kicking her out of the store, that's perfectly valid. But if she didn't leave, that's trespassing, sure. I guess it just depends on how far it escalated. So I have to walk it back a little bit, but I still have to ask, why are we having to put these laws in place, these rules in place? I keep saying laws, I'm sorry. These rules in place, well, because we keep taking consequences away from kids. We keep training them not to grow up. Oh, it's for the kids. We got to protect them. I'm like, okay, I get you. But these rules, we really should be working better, right? Why does America have the shittiest internet? Like, you look at some other countries and they have some damn good internet. Like, but why does America have garbage comparatively? Oh, I totally agree. Well, true. About matching the government. See, I think kids shouldn't be able to have access to the World Wide Web. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know that much. What I do know is that I think, yeah. I don't care who's in office. We haven't had any good choices, I think, this century and the last century. I think the closest we had to a good choice was Teddy Roosevelt. People hold up Truman. And there was his vice president for 2 of his 3 terms, Wallace. I think he would have been a good choice. How we ended up with, or not Truman. Truman was a piece of crap. FDR. I don't know. There might be a few good choices here and there, but they're all still controlled. And that's really the problem. You look at the era we're in now, and it's basically right back around to the early 1900s, where we made the world's most millionaires through war. JP Morgan, Chase, Rockefeller, they all made all of their money off of war. And I think that's why we keep looking for a war now. But I think with kids and the internet, I don't think kids should be able to have access to an internet that is more than what their school district is. Like somehow, even at home, the kids should only have access to an internet that is just whoever is in their school district. I'm not saying that it would be a whole lot better. Okay, 2008. That seems valid. I noticed a real steep decline about that same time, too. You know, when BlackRock started controlling so much money. I mean, that's when BlackRock started really making money hand over fist, because they bought up a lot of those houses that were foreclosed on illegally. You know, I mean, don't forget that, you know, Obama got all of those houses paid for, but it didn't clear the debt. Because remember, the whole payments they got were to help with the people that couldn't pay off their debts. You know, that whatever trillion amount of dollars they were given between all the banks. Right. But if I remember right, people doing math, you know, and I'm not good at math, you basically could have given a decent check to every person in America and they would have paid off their debt, and those banks would have got paid that money. Like, it would have floated the banks either way. But the way that Obama did it meant that the people's debt wasn't canceled. Maths. Okay, I was like, maths? Yeah. You know, I just remember that it was like some kind of Matt Pat. Yeah, I always blame Matt. I don't know who Matt is, but I'll blame him. We could have paid off everybody's debt. And people would have like spent the money stupidly too. You know, I mean, they may have not paid off their debt. But no matter what, the banks would have got the money. That's funny. I just get so frustrated. I get so terribly frustrated with seeing how easily these solutions would have, like, yeah, sure, people would have been back at, you know, digging deep. Well, that's what it is. Twitch can't do math. Matt's math. Math. Watch, it really is. That'd be funny. But I have no idea. I don't know. You know, there's a lot of problems in the world. Ghost Matt Inc. And I think that it can be quite easily solved, but it's difficult to get the ball rolling. You know, that's the biggest problem, is getting the ball rolling, is getting enough people to understand that collectively we have the power to do what we believe is right. You know, that's really the important part, is understanding that we have power to do what we need to do. This has been a Rando production, LMAO. Don't you mean LLC? Nope, LMAO. I don't know. You know, I don't have all the, you know, I don't have solutions, but I know there's solutions out there. LLC Inc. Corp. Right? I guess you just might say I'm tired of people being not treated like people. Like, both sides of the argument treat OnlyFans models like not people. Right? LMAO is greater than an LLC. You know, they treat people of color, they treat anybody that they disagree with, and both sides do this, as pawns, as things to be moved around a board and leveraged to get better weight on their side of the board. And it really has nothing to do with helping or hindering those people either, because they don't see them as people. So it makes no sense. So the only reason why they're doing it is to keep us distracted. You know, I mean, we need to stop being distracted. We need to start looking at what's best for us. You know, and like Rando and I were bantering back and forth earlier, but, you know, revolution. But bloody revolution never solves anything. In fact, it just makes things worse. It takes decades. And sometimes it never even ever comes back to good. I mean, look at America and the whole bitch with the Confederacy and in the Union. Yeah, keep it cheap. Don't blow up Trump's car. I do not advocate for violence. In fact, that's exactly what I'm trying to talk against. Even blowing up his car without him in it is still a symbol of violence. It's still, well, yeah, because now you feel like you had an effect. It never really works out. Ha. Okay, putting air in the tires. No, man, I hear if you put helium in the tires, you get better gas mileage because the car's lighter. That's a joke, by the way. I have no idea what that would do. I know the relative density of the tire, the like gas inside the tire would probably be a very bad idea. I mean, it'd probably screw up your traction and probably screw up so much. We need Mythbusters back, damn it. I miss that show. Even if it wasn't always accurate. Not that kind of gas. Putting helium in tires and see if they work. See if it makes the car run better. Like get better gas mileage. And then we could also do it with a electric car. Just to see if there's a difference. See? This is why I'm saying we need Mythbusters back. You know, or maybe just like try different gases in tires. Well, but if you used it, your tires would be deflated. True. Or try different gases like carbon dioxide. I mean, all the gases have different densities, pressures. You know, maybe we're using the wrong stuff for our tires. Maybe there's a better choice. I don't know. I would not use methane. Way too unstable. Plus, if I remember right, it degrades rubber and rubber-like compounds. I think after like a few months, your tires would just like crumble. And that I don't think would be good for anybody. Mix the gases, create a new gas. You know, I mean, for all we know, you know, using one of the noble gases like neon, krypton, you know, those gases might be worthy too. Who knows? True. Neon tires. That would be fun if you could actually do it. Although I did watch this weird thing about filamentless fluorescent lights. And like there's no actual, right? But there's no actual like wires that go inside. It's just a sealed glass tube with all the things that go in normal fluorescence. And you use an outside magnet to light it up. Oh, yeah, I need lab and money too, for different reasons. And it's not a Breaking Bad scenario. I remember a little bit about chemistry. But I accidentally created even more meth. Damn. I accidentally created super meth. What'd you do? I added Krypton to it. What? Although in all actuality, in the comic books, there was a Superman variant that would get more powerful if he snorted kryptonite. Something like that. It was weird. The whole planet. Oh, I don't think he was a hero. I think he was a bad guy. One of the bad Superman. I mean, for all I know, he was one of the Bizarros, which would make it real sense. A real people's hero. Well, and see, that's the problem is that we identify more, going back to like the earlier subject, is we identify more with fucked up characters than we do with the people that really should be, right? We identify with shitty people. I mean, think about it. First it was the Joker, the first Joker, Heath Ledger's Joker, that people identified with and tried to make into like some kind of hero. And then it was Joaquin Phoenix's. Drugs are bad, okay? Which they are. They're bad. Which is why, it takes a doctor to prescribe them to you. Something like that. But that's the bad thing, is that the only heroes we have are people that are actually fighting the established power. I mean, Batman's probably one of the worst superheroes you can have in today's day and age. A billionaire that thinks he can, lay down the law for everybody else. Isn't that just Elon Musk? I mean, it's so sad that our world is so upside down right now. That we can't seem to understand how bad we've done a job. Ew. Right? The worst thing he ever did was started Twitter. Or bought Twitter, not started it. God, now he's going to have people thinking he founded Twitter. Just like he founded every other company. No, he hasn't. He hasn't found any companies. He was never been a founder. He's always just been a major buyer. Well, the only way, and I'll type this out. I will say it in a different way. But I call it jitter. Because it's going down the jitter. But, that's my take on that one. I have a Twitter. I have never used it. And I absolutely refuse to use it. I mean, hell, probably by now it's been hacked. I don't know. Well, I haven't signed into that thing in forever, and I don't care to. I think most social media is complete garbage. It's literally just meant to make you compare yourself to somebody that you can't compare to. That's the problem. Is that we can't fix this issue. Because we keep giving, people social media and they keep abusing it. We keep trying to compare ourselves to these people, a slice of a person's life, not realizing how damaged they are on all other sorts because they curate these things. You can't compare yourself to these people. Just as much as you, take a selfie and throw away 5 of them before you get the right one, they're doing the same thing, only with their whole life. Nobody's real anymore. Everybody's got like cooking videos. You know how many takes they use to get just the right look for what they want for their food? I mean, you have no idea how much they do. How much waste goes into one cooking video because it has to work out just right. We don't realize how much of our world around us is curated like a museum. Place just so, makeup just right, do this. And when I say makeup, I mean on the food or on the car or on the clothes. It's not what you're actually getting. Everything has to be just this perfect tailored experience. The whole world's trying to turn into Disney World, Disneyland, whichever one you care about. And it's ridiculous. We only show ourselves through our screens. We're more connected to a person halfway across the world from us than we are to our own neighbors. We don't talk to them. We don't even really know them in passing. Most people don't anyway. We're not really connecting as a human society anymore. We're so disconnected in the most connected age. And it's because we're afraid of meeting people in real life. So we have to meet people online where we have our anonymity, where we can't be held accountable and they can't be held accountable for what they do. So we all hide behind a mask. Well, some of us. I do my best not to hide behind a mask. I mean, if you meet me in real life and we have a conversation, it goes just like this. I'm all over the place. I talk about a little bit of everything, try to put in jokes. That's who I am. That's who I've always been. I can talk about pretty much anything with anyone. I don't care. Yeah, but they may not believe you because you're my kid. I mean, you're right, that this is who I am. This is what I do. This is just me. Because no scandal's ever going to come out that I probably haven't already admitted to at one point or another. Although I don't think I've ever really done anything scandalous, but you know what I mean. Yes, it is. This is this is me. Which, remember, Denny's didn't close, so I used to be, walking around talking all the freaking time. Waffles. Waffles are good. I have waffles. I forgot I had those. Sorry. I might make breakfast for dinner tomorrow. Because that would be really easy to make. But I haven't had waffle fries in forever. Right? Post pancake clarity. Hey, when you're right, you're right. But that's the point, I think, is what I'm trying to make, is that I think, we too often think about curating an image for others. And I think that's why so many of these creators burn out. Ah. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Well, there's something wrong if food didn't actually agree with you earlier. Sorry, earlier. Earlier. But, that's not, but I don't care, spout off random bullshit. I do it too. I mean, that's kind of what I do here on this. I just spout off random bullshit. Earlier. All right, I get it. No, that actually is a proper. I think my stomach's made that same sound too. It's just, the world is so funny sometimes. How we want people to like us, so we change ourselves so that people will like us. Oh, milkshake. I can't have too many of them. But, because most of them have corn syrup in them, and corn syrup does not agree with me. But we hide behind these masks of our internet identities. We're not really who we are. We're afraid if we act a certain way, we might lose, I mean, I guess that's what I was trying to say with, all the personalities we have today, all these influencers. If you get a peek behind the curtain, you'd never respect them. Most of them. Ooh, I haven't had ice cream in a long time. I am very happy for you, and I am very jealous. Because now I just thought about waffles and ice cream. Have you ever had a good Belgian waffle sundae? So good. So very good. Haagen-Dazs. You Haagen-Dazs? Come on, scoop, scoop, pass. Sorry. But I am just a loser, huh? I'm trying to eat better. I don't have too many sweets and treats. Because if they're around the house, I will eat them. Yes, I did say scoop, scoop, pass. Because they was Haagen-Dazs. I try to make good jokes. Everybody else just kind of let it slide. All right. And you get a paddling, and you get a paddling, and you get a paddling. Yeah, that sounds about right. As long as it wasn't the Oprah of capital punishment, we're all good. What was it Ghoulie used to say? These hands are E, rated for everyone. These hands are rated E for everyone. I don't know. It's just rated E for everyone. Right? Oh, I'm sure you didn't start it, but the way you used to say it was freaking hilarious. I still remember that the one about pronouns. That one still is one of my most favorite. My pronouns are fuck around and find out. I identify as a problem. Oh, that is funny that you have waffles. And I think that's the other thing is right? Yeah. I just think it's a lot, where we keep putting up these signs and signals for everybody. I don't think everybody needs to know what pronouns you go by. Who cares? Because either A, it's immensely obvious, or B, you're putting a target on you. Yeah, exactly. But I kind of figured. But it is about that time. I hate to do this, but it is time to kind of start wrapping up and letting things go until tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, exactly. Like, why do you keep, giving people ammunition? Why do you keep telling people how to mess with you? I know that that's not necessarily a proper way to say things, but the simple fact is that's what you're doing. Yeah. An open mind is like a palace with its gates unbarred and unguarded. Yes, I slightly modified that to say palace. Yeah, it is about that time to start wrapping up. Yeah. Yeah, I will be streaming 2 to 4 Central Time on Wednesday, just like I have been for a while. I'm just also expanding it to Tuesdays and Thursdays. Yes, block. Liberally block people. Yeah. No one owes you anything, and you don't owe anything to anyone. Anything more than you're willing to give them. Yep. Same brain cell, kiddo. Same brain cell. That's really what it is that you don't owe anything to anybody. They don't owe anything to you more than you're willing to give or take. Pure and simple. All right. I will have to. I need to get a sequin glove and try this out. I know I did Bloody Mary and it never did anything. But yeah, 'tis time to say goodbye. El hee hee.